Government slashes global state budget of ministries with the exception of youth empowerment program despite the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Commercial flights have been authorized entry into the country's airports after close to 3 months of inactivity due to the coronavirus pandemic. When will CAMAIR-Co next flight take off? Get the response in this newscast. Municipal councillors who fail to be elected as mayors have the tendency of wanting to keep their previous duty positions and continue as council executives. But what does the law say about the accumulation of functions? Get expert explanation in this newscast. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the 7:30 News with me, Gladys Tata.
Each of us must comply with the measures that have been taken.
Welcome back. As you heard in our top stories, over 200 passengers on board Air France flight, amongst whom were some Cameroonians who were stranded overseas as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, have successfully returned home. The plane landed Monday at the Yaoundé-Simalène International Airport, the third of its kind since government authorized commercial flights for Air France. As Yoti Kaleli Songe reports, all hands are on deck at the airport to ensure that only coronavirus-free individuals get into the country. Her report.
An authorized Air France commercial flight, the third of its kind, bringing back life to the Simalène International Airport. Aboard are 219 passengers, and the hospitable airport staff mean business, disinfecting one and all. The hitherto deserted waiting room can now receive its guests. 50 out of the lot have already tested negative to the coronavirus.
The people who had the test within 3 days and the tests are negative, these people are negative as well, so they have no problem. But those who have tested more than 3 days before, we have to test them again to be sure that they are not positive.
For those who are tested negative, we just go for the immigration formalities and go and take the way out. And for those who are tested positive, there is a rapid intervention team that will take them to the treatment centers.
Respecting physical distancing seems difficult, but there's always someone to remind them of what is at stake. After going through the process to keep safe from COVID-19, Cameroon receives a thumbs up.
It's a good procedure. It's better than Europe, where you do the test maximum 72 hours before you travel. One of the things we're supposed to do is send the results of the test. I think administratively at the airport is still a little bit difficult, because as soon as passengers arrive, if they have all what they've sent ready, it's a lot easier. The process of filling all the forms took a lot longer.
Holding the passengers a little longer upon their arrival at the airport may have seemed unbearable, but they agree it was worth the wait as they drive home without fear of infecting anyone.
The Yaoundé-Simalène International Airport has beefed up barrier measures against the COVID-19 as partial upliftment of commercial flights goes operational. Luma Slim Davies was at the Simalène International Airport to see things for himself. Here is what he brought back for the 7:30 News.
This was the atmosphere at the Yaoundé-Simalène International Airport as an Air France flight was being expected in the midst of the coronavirus scare. The prescribed distancing measures was emphasized on in the check-in areas and departure lounge.
Passengers who are in front will be embarking first, and passengers who are behind will be embarking at last. There are 2 seats between 2 passengers. Passengers should not be seated close to each other. As you see, the markings, when the embarkation comes, they will be lined up according to the respecting the distanciation measures that you can see on the ground.
The airport officials are conscious and strict in enforcing the list of the prescribed barrier measures in the various departments of the airport.
From the entrance of the hall, there's a health team which takes temperature, and before that, the COVID test had already been taken. There is also a temperature screening which is done by healthcare teams. In the airport here, the wearing of the mask is obligatory. If someone doesn't have a face mask, he's not allowed to board the plane.
The video surveillance technique is also an added twist in reinforcing checks in various aspects. As far as barring the way to the coronavirus pandemic, the Yaoundé and Simaleng International Airport could be said to be up to expectations.
Transportation by air is resuming progressively at the Douala and Yaoundé International Airports, which have received some aircrafts. When we take a look at the Cameroon Airlines company, CAMAIR-Co, the question that comes to mind is whether the company has enough aircrafts to resume activities. Sally Ebenyanyoki of CRTV Littoral attempts an answer in the following write-up.
Before the COVID-19 outbreak in Cameroon, which led to the closure of frontiers, the suspension of international flights and exploitation of CAMAIR-Co, the Cameroon Airlines company had 2 aircrafts operational, a CURE-400 on hire with 78 places and an MA-60 of 48 places in an airspace characterized by competition. Some airlines companies are already bracing up for a resumption of flights after COVID-19. In the meantime, the pride of Cameroon, CAMAIR-Co, has lost its CURE-400 retrieved by its owner because of arrears. For now, it is the MA-60 whose important parts are faulty that the company is hoping to use when it resumes flights after COVID-19. For the Cameroon-owned fleets, they are found in maintenance or repair workshops with very high costs. For a resumption of CAMAIR-Co, however, there are plans to hire a 737 aircraft with a complete crew, an alternative which does not guarantee any profits for the company. For a flashback, since the creation of CAMAIR-Co, the company has not been able to maintain an aircraft in the skies. Managerial and strategic decisions have not been easy to come by, meanwhile numerous conflicts of interest have been plaguing the company. Hundreds of millions of francs have been lost and huge debts incurred. The question on every lip is whether Cameroon will be able to have a true air transport company after CAMAIR. If yes, then it is important to save CAMAIR-Co.
Over 30,000 business plans proposed by Cameroonian youth hoping to benefit from the Head of State Special 3-year Youth Plan this 2020 have gone under scrutiny at the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Civic Education. This was during a pre-validation session by the Monitoring Committee for the implementation of the Triennial Youth Plan. Yoti Kaleli Songe tells us more.
Video conferencing is en vogue to stay updated with issues relating to work. In this case, it's the medium used by the Monitoring Committee for the implementation of the 3-year Special Youth Plan to examine some 32,000 projects from the 10 regions of the country designed by young people hoping to be shortlisted as beneficiaries this 2020. 6 billion CFA francs is the budget.
There are many domains that are concerned. The digitals are concerned, young people that are into agriculture, and young people that are also in the domain of land law in the grassroots level is coming right during a difficult period for the young people. We are now talking about the pandemic. There are many young people that are lacking of jobs.
This is the incubation center where most of the youth work from and are trained on how to harmonize their business plans. Only those registered at the National Youth Observatory can benefit from the Special Youth Plan.
What we are encouraging right now is that the young people should also subscribe to the official website of the Triennial Special Youth Plan because there should be more opportunities that they can seize. If they do not have the right information, I don't think that they are going to subscribe.
After this pre-validation session, the projects will be presented to the Prime Minister, who will then work with other stakeholders to validate the chosen few.
The Youth Triennial Plan put in place by government to enhance youth entrepreneurship and self-employment is fast developing the youngsters that have benefited from it. Those involved in secretarial duties are doing well after being funded 3 years later. Fabius Kamgia is one of the youths who received 7 million CFA francs and is today doing well in business. Ewane Epole now portrays this young entrepreneur in the following report.
This is Fabius Kamgia, one of the youngsters who has benefited from the special youth trainer plan put in place by government to promote entrepreneurship and self-employment.
In 2015, I subscribed to the NGO platform, and 1 year later, I received a message that announced me that I was selected to benefit the project. I submitted to open a digital company making on digital marketing secretarial duties.
In 2017, he received funding and immediately engaged in secretariat work.
I first of all received my part in the public ceremony the materials, and after that they give us the money. That money help us to find a new place to install that materials that we receive from the government.
According to him, the business is profitable. He has decided to carry out other activities in order to reap more benefit.
In our business, we add photography, infography, wedding planner, and we are now trying to manage a partnership with CMPG of Madagascar, the reference of Madagascar, for professional training of youth who have registered on the NGO platform.
Age 35, Fabius Kamgia is holder of an HND in ICT. He says that thanks to government support, he can now fend for himself and his family.
The cut in the state budget has left some administrations with less financial resources, but youth programs have not suffered the same fate. Officials explain the goal is to ensure that the social fabric is preserved and the socio-economic development of the youth guaranteed in spite of the prevailing health crisis in the country. Clarice Aritakang now explains.
When it was announced in February 2016, the 3-year special youth plan was endowed with a 102 billion CFA francs financial package. The aim was to enable the government push through with the objective of creating a conducive atmosphere for the socio-economic development of Cameroon's youth, which fall in line with the overall goal of the special youth plan. The presidential ordinance modifying the 2020 finance law may have seen the state budget reduced, but youth programs will not be impacted as the corresponding funds have been preserved.
The budget of the 3-year special youth plan in 2020 is 6 billion and 100 million francs. This envelope will be served to finance the project of the youth and in order to realize their project, their enterprise. So 1,941 project of youth, it will be served to finance the training of those youth, and in the 4 domains.
A number of administrations witnessed considerable budget cuts following the ordinance. However, sectors with the social well-being of the youths at the heart of their actions came off none the worse for wear. This is the case with youth affairs and vocational training, whose drop hardly totals 1 billion CFA francs. The different levels of education were equally taken into account, as the right to learning is exposed to the COVID-19 threat. Keeping the school milieu safe thus becomes a non-negotiable task and challenge. Meanwhile, preserving the social fabric with a pandemic to deal with remains a priority for the state. The promotion of women and the family too. Reading meaning into the presidential ordinance modifying the 2020 finance law, observers admit that, though inevitable, the desire to keep the social well-being of the youths at heart is a laudable one.
Some elective council executives are today caught in the trap of their ambitions to become mayors in the municipalities within the context of accelerated transfer of competences to local decentralized entities. After failing short of grabbing the lead position of mayor, some of them are seeking clemency from the supervisory ministry to keep the advantages of their previous duty positions and continue as council executive. Does the law permit any cumulative window of optimal consideration of remuneration within the leadership of the councils? Are the questions experts in the domain provide answers to in this report by Kilian Dandifan.
Credible sources from the Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development say there is a scrutiny of the files of the mayors and their deputies following allegations that some are still holding tight to their previous functions.
The General Decentralization Code disallows cumulation of functions. The Minister has ordered the study of files of the concerned officials in the councils to better apply the law.
Following the General Decentralization Code, the mayors and their deputies are paid from the general allocation of decentralization, a special budgetary head to the tune of 3 billion CFA francs.
The General Decentralization Code obliges permanent residence and service of mayors in the area of jurisdiction. They are paid from the General Decentralization Allocation Budget Head, linked to the council. Here, there is no room for salary doubling. It is not optional because the law says mayors and their deputies benefit from a remuneration for work done in councils.
Even the problem of residence is still persisting, contrary to the taxing force, which make it compulsory for the elected local executives to reside permanently in their area of jurisdiction. Simply, some of the elected local executives will have to resign from one post to stay in another.
And you're watching the 7:30 News live from Studio 5 here in CRTV Production Center in Balato. The second ordinary session of the 2020 legislative year of the lower and upper houses of Parliament opens this Wednesday with speakers of both institutions expected to chair the sittings. Deliberations will hold at the Yaoundé Conference Center due to ongoing construction work at the National Assembly. Ahead of tomorrow's opening, Esther Kima reports on the new dispensation and the level of preparedness.
Relocating to the conference center for a smooth continuity of legislative activity at the National Assembly was ideal for the General Secretariat. In about a fortnight, the modification of the Speaker's office is finalized with a glare of locally made furniture exposed, the two committee halls with special dispensations, and a house chamber ready with name tags awaiting the 180 occupants, respecting physical distancing rules, are unveiled. The disinfection of the premises by health personnel is telling of the challenge ahead.
All the infrastructure are here, are ready for the MPs. It was a challenge, and we think that that challenge is 100% achievable.
For the security of the elected representatives, anti-COVID-19 measures, such as the provision of disinfectant scanners, are operational.
The measure of disinfection of all the hall, the Speaker of National Assembly brought about 2 disinfectant scanners for all the MPs and the staff. We are going to give a pack of kits, tell the deputy. There is a welcome package of the Speaker to the MPs.
As the elected representatives troop in for their accommodation, or tell the deputy also delimits access.
We don't accept visitors to come like before to see the Member of Parliament.
Senators on their part will be regaining their usual house chamber, where refurbishing, which suits the caliber of the 30-day deliberations, is being completed.
In a related development, the second ordinary session of Parliament at the Upper House will open tomorrow, and the opening session is at 4 p.m. Then, ahead of tomorrow's opening session, Senate correspondent Charles Anyangwe paints a picture of the stakes and challenges of the June session of Parliament. Charles?
The June session of Parliament is coming at a time when the talk of the day is the coronavirus pandemic that is causing havoc nationwide. The ordinance signed by the head of state modifying certain provisions of the state budget to address the issue will certainly be an element that parliamentarians would be expecting to see before them during this session.
We expect a bill that modifies the finance law of 2020 to provide funds to handle the corona pandemic in Cameroon.
The common enemy we're fighting in the whole country, the COVID-19. So during this session, certainly a lot of these discussions will characterize the sitting.
I expect a bill to review the 2020 state budget so that it can allow space for the inclusion of the coronavirus budget into it, so as to enable the government to handle the situation better.
Members of the upper and lower houses of parliament will also be expecting to see bills tabled before them that concern the reconstruction of the southwest and northwest regions.
This will enable the boys to come out from the bush because they will see government's good faith in the reconstruction of these two regions, as said in the Grand National Dialogue.
Another issue of prime importance is that concerning the acceleration of the decentralization process.
The whole aspect of handing powers to the councils will be a reality, so that people will believe what government have been saying.
Parliamentarians will also be expected to play an active role in controlling government action through oral questions to members of government and to see more bills that take into consideration the development of the country and especially the well-being of Cameroonians.
And standing by at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center is Gilbert Ongene with the latest news on COVID-19 in Cameroon. Good evening, Gilbert Ongene. Can you tell us what are the latest updates there at the Operations Center?
Hello, Gladys. Welcome to the Public Health Emergency Operations Center here at the Mesa neighborhood in Yaoundé. The good news out there, Gladys, is that we have recorded 0 deaths as a result of coronavirus across the national territory today. Quite good news for all of us out here. And of course, this is an indication that the number of deaths as a result of the coronavirus is stabilizing. As you notice, the past days, the number has been revolving between 2 and 3. Yesterday we had 2 deaths, and today we have 0 deaths. Unlike the start of this pandemic, when on a single day we could record as many as 10 deaths in a single day. That's an indication that the situation is stabilizing. And we have 369 new cases who were screened today as a result of the coronavirus declared positive, and 42 recoveries. We are having our guest tonight, Dr. Eric Tandy, who is a public health expert here at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center. Good evening, Doctor.
Yeah, good evening, Gilbert.
Thank you for always being available for us.
Thank you.
Now we have this topic we're talking about, the call centers. We're actually here in one of the call centers, which responds to the number 1510, a free-to number. And tell us, apart from this center, we have other centers across the country?
Yeah, Gilbert, thank you for your question. You know, with the decentralization, it's not only decentralization in terms of materials and equipment, it also goes with calls and attention to the general public. So all other regions, and even right up to districts, now have phone numbers, specific phone numbers that have been designated to respond to the population worries as far as COVID-19 is concerned.
And these centers don't respond to the 1510 necessarily. They have their own numbers.
Yeah, I should specify here that 1510, the littoral region is equally responding to 1510, but other regions have other specific mobile phone numbers that have been made public to the population so that they can call and they would have somebody to attend to them. But again, 1510 can equally orientate you to some of these specific numbers. Even right here where we are, some people still call from other regions, and we receive the calls here. And right here we are able to locate you and orientate you as per your worries.
Now tell us, when the people do call and they declare a positive case in the neighborhood or in the community, how do you go about taking care of managing this kind of situation?
Yeah, I think it is very specific to mention here that we don't have positive cases loitering in the community. We should say here that suspected cases, people who called with suspected symptoms, it means they're producing some signs and symptoms that have caused them to be worried. They now call. There is a team, rapid intervention team, that will leave. Even if you are at the district level now with a decentralization, each district now has a rapid intervention team that will get directly to where you are, and then with trained personnel, they will be able to orientate you for a proper sample collection before diagnosis is done, and then orientate you in order to wait for some time before your results are being issued, the measures that you need to respect during this waiting time, and expected results, which I think might either be positive or negative. And if positive, you are being oriented to a suitable care.
Let's talk about positive and negative results. Let's assume that somebody who carried out the test has been sent an SMS which indicates that he's positive. The reaction is the same procedure that people descend to the field and take care of him.
Yeah, let me mention here clearly that the government has made it possible that for every COVID-19 case, remember, the government has made it very clear that every COVID-19 case is being handled free of charge. Once you are being declared positive, there is a whole package that has been reserved, and that is why you see they have reserved some social housing, and even some centers have been demarcated in order to receive people. Although you are producing asymptomatic sign, means you are not producing any signs and symptoms, you are asymptomatic, you are being taken to these centers, and follow-up is being done. Remember, follow-up is done to these asymptomatic cases twice daily, which therefore means in the morning and in the evening. But then if you have an issue, there are always medical personnel who can attend to you, and their numbers have been made available for each positive case.
Now, a patient who calls and wants to know the center nearest to him for treatment, the centers are recognized to take care of people suffering from coronavirus. How do you go about orientating the person?
Yeah, I should say this one is one of the normal calls that we do receive. But then once you have been diagnosed, you have been screened and it shows that you're positive, you are simply oriented directly to a care center, either in a confinement center, which in case of Yaoundé is Olembe and other sites that have been allocated. And if you are producing symptomatic cases, it means that it shows that you're already producing some signs and symptoms, then medical care will be provided to you as well. So there is no need to say that somebody in the community just want to move to a treatment center, except you want to go for information or for screening.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Eric Tandy, public health expert here at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center in the Mesa neighborhood in Yaoundé. Well, Gladys, the good news out here, as I told you at the beginning, is that we have 0 deaths from the coronavirus today in Cameroon, 369 new cases screened, and of course 42 recoveries. Over to you, studio.
Well, I thank you very much, Gilbert Ongene, and as we say, respect the government prescriptions by wearing face masks and washing of hands. Thank you very much, and hope to be in your company tomorrow. And the head of state, President Paul Biya, has donated 170,000 face masks to the education sector. While handing over the consignment to the Yaoundé, the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, said the head of state's support is to reinforce prescribed protective measures such as the obligatory wearing of face masks in public areas. Gerald Nanje Eyambe witnessed the ceremony attended by top officials in education and vocational training and now reports.
These are 170,000 face masks offered by the head of state destined for state and private universities, higher institutions, professional training institutions, as well as primary and secondary schools. While officially handing over the consignment to the different ministers in charge of education, the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, said the presidential gesture falls within the framework of government response strategy against the spread of COVID-19.
We want our youths to go to school, and we match that opportunity with action. And that is what the head of state has done. Use your masks. We can be sure that if it gets finished, we'll call on the head of state to give us some more.
We are going to distribute them wherever there are vocational training. I would like to express gratitude and thanks to the head of state.
We will use this mask with a lot of probity, of proactivity.
The head of state listened, and today he has provided masks that are suitable for children of that age. Therefore, the young children have masks that would fit them. This is very good because the head of state is showing by example.
Government has made the wearing of face masks compulsory since it is one of the main barrier measures against COVID-19.
A huge consignment of face masks has equally been offered to the Ministry of Communication in an effort to stop the spread of the coronavirus in the administration. The gifts from officials of Star Times, a Chinese company, were handed over to the Secretary General of the Ministry of Communication, Dr. Felice Zogo, in a ceremony in Yaoundé today. Emanuela Vernier tells us more.
A stretched hand of friendship with 3,500 face masks to the Ministry of Communication to limit the spread of the coronavirus at a time the structure counts 3 positive cases. Star Times, a Chinese company, through this gesture wants to shield the staff of this ministry from the killer pandemic.
We support the Ministry of Communication to show our friendship with dates back to 2013. A friend is more appreciated during a difficult time like now.
The Secretary General Félix Zogo receives the offer on behalf of Communication Minister with words of appreciation.
I have to express all our gratitude to Start Time, our partner, to make this gift. The wearing of the mask is the most important act that everyone have to respect.
This comes to add to other measures taken by the Ministry of Communication to keep its staff safe from the killer pandemic.
The Canadian government has equally disbursed roughly 4.5 billion CFA francs to help Cameroon meet the humanitarian challenge in the northwest, southwest and far north regions to combat COVID-19. The Canadian Commissioner to Cameroon, His Excellency Richard Bale, was speaking today in Yaoundé after an audience with External Relations Minister Mbela. Charles Ebune reports.
At least 98,000 coronavirus cases are confirmed in Canada, of whom plus 58,000 have recovered, with plus 7,000 deaths. Yet Canada remains globally engaged to roll back the virus.
And for the fight against COVID through different channels, we are providing another $5 million in support. And this is through a mixture of channels, through local NGOs, through international NGOs, through UN agencies.
The Canadian government aid was partially responsible for the government to assist schools to reopen a few days ago.
Provided quite significant support to UNICEF in the reopening of the schools at the beginning of June, which is something that we were proud of. And plus we are financing the supply of 2,000 test kits, which will be arriving soon from the International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna.
The roughly 2.2 billion CFA francs for the fight against the coronavirus in Cameroon is matched up by a similar financial package for humanitarian endeavors in the troubled northwest, southwest, and far north regions of the country.
So for humanitarian, in Canadian dollars, we had announced about 5 million in support in the far north, in the east, in northwest, southwest.
The only two countries in the world using English and French as their official tongues, the assistance language between Canada and Cameroon is well mastered.
The Ministry of Public Health has opened several decentralized centers for COVID-19 screening in the city of Yaoundé to facilitate test procedures to the population. In most of the sites, people get their results 15 minutes after screening is done. As Romeo Kenyi tells us, there has been an affluence at these newly created centers by the population who wish to know their COVID-19 status.
This is the tribune of the National Advanced Police School in Yaoundé. It is one of the several decentralized centers for COVID-19 screening. Just 2 days after the site went operational, the turnout here speaks volumes.
Yesterday we received about 35 persons, and today I see that the number is increasing. When you come here for your test, they register you on a paper to know your identification.
Normally, when you after doing the test, during 15 minutes, there's a psychologist in our team that prepares each person's mind.
The results are released in just 15 minutes after the screening process is done. At the Club Camtel in Balatu, individuals are hosted under canopies. Here, the test procedures are the same. The esplanade of the Yaoundé Omnisports Stadium is equally one of the places where coronavirus tests are carried out.
Since the beginning of the epidemics, we noticed that cases were increasing. Now that we have entered in the community phase, the cases are multiplying. So we need also to multiply the sites where we can collect samples, and they are more comfortable when they go to this kind of sites.
With these decentralized units set up across the city of Yaoundé by the Ministry of Public Health, everyone is enjoined to participate in the process in order to limit the spread of the dreaded pandemic.
5-year convention has been signed between officials of the Kribi Port Authority and the Standards and Quality Services, known in its French acronym as ANOR. The partnership agreement, which was signed by both officials of the companies, is intended to boost the maritime services of the port on the competitive market. Polycarp Ati is a man on that bit from Kribi.
The convention signed between the Kribi Port Authority and Standards and Quality Agency will go a long way to boost the quality services of the port in the domain of logistics, administrations and others, permitting the port to be more competitive in the international market.
This convention will permit to the port of Kribi to be a structure who will be able to put in place the conformity assessment program to be sure that all their products, all their services are good, and to be a structure who will permit to enhance development of Cameroon.
The Kribi Port Authority, though young but considered as one of the biggest in Central Africa, is determined to leave no stone unturned at the level of the continuous maritime services they offer to clients. Its new partner, Standards and Quality Agency, has come to make this dream come true.
The immediate objective should be the certification of in quality management. We think that with these certifications, the Kribi Port Authority should be more and more attractive.
This win-win 5-year convention with Standards and Quality Agency will expose and strengthen the workshop and similarity the companies portray.
And that's how we saw the 7:30 news this evening. Thanks for watching. You'll be in the company of Romeo Chisangok at 8:30 for the news in French. I'll be here same time tomorrow at 7:30. Until then, it's bye from all of us on the 7:30 crew. Good night.
In this connection, we should avoid stigmatizing